least is we combined with the International HPC Symposium. And we have the honor to get several world-renowned researchers coming to NCHC to give talks, and you will hear all of them today. The very reason to forge a HPC and trustworthy cyber infrastructure theme is that, as we know, all the data centers around the world now rush to increase their capacities in AI machines. Okay, due to the partly due to ChatGPT, the birth of it stimulate very strong needs for AI. And as this is going, we see that all the data not just coming into the data center, all kinds of data. Some needs protection, some are in public domain, some have copyright issues. So for that reason, we think that HPC in the future should be put in the concept of this trustworthy framework, so that when we do the HPC computation, we also have the cybersecurity, all the data private issues in mind. And I hope we can get together today to forge ahead some kind of strategy so that will benefit everybody in the whole world. Okay, and without further ado, I would like to move on. And again, welcome every one of you, and I hope you enjoy the Southern Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang. Next, we would like to invite Dr. Baozhu Zhan, Dean of College of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science of National Cheng Kung University, to delegate the HPC community.
I think I prefer to come here. I'm too short. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Zhang, Director Zhang, and also I think Dr. Matsuoka and also Madduri is here, and also our distinguished guest. Thank you for coming to Thailand, taking all your time all the way to here. It is my great honor to welcome all of you on behalf of the local host. NCKU is based in Thailand. It's about 30 minutes drive from here. So we are the main university in the Thailand city. Today I'm very glad to see this kind of event and all of you together here, together to discuss some of the issues. You know that because of the AI, the high performance computing is become the most important part. We know that no matter ChatGPT or Llama or those great models, they all need very large computing power. In follow of this AI wave, our country or our governments have put a lot of efforts in building this high performance computing, and at the same time has supported quite a lot of the activities going on to promote the AI. One of the part is founded AI Center of Excellence. So we are coming from the infrastructure building and also from the policy making, strategy making, to make sure that AI can be going on under the safe and the trustworthy environment. And we know that when we are using the high performance computing, we are putting all the data in the computing system. One of the issues we care the most is whether we can have very safe connection, whether our data, our model are safely stored, whether we have enough of the computing power, whether we have enough of the storage, so that our task can be achieved smoothly and with high effectiveness. So that is the main task of NCHC, and I'm the one of the benefits from the infrastructure, because I need lots of computing power from there. So without that, it is impossible that we can have the system or the model moving forward. So in order to have that, we need to have lots of data, and we need lots of computing power. Only with enough of the safe infrastructure, then we can have AI and all these progress smoothly. So that is a very important part. And it's very important that you have strong support, because without the strong support, you might feel very hesitant because it is not the same as you are working in the PC. There are some of the technique and how to use the system effectively, how to optimize your model in the system. These are all very important parts. And so our government has put lots of effort, and I want to thank NCHC for offering very great environment for us. And also, I would also let you know that our country, our government, is pushing a lot of effort from all aspects to let the trustworthy and high performance computing and all these environments moving forward. And at the same time, the research resources are also putting in to make our country move forward in this wave of the technology. So with today, as mentioned by Dr. Zhang, Tainan is the ancient capital. Ancient capital, okay? So that means you will be able to see lots of the historical sites. You can take the train. There's a train under the on back, probably just 5 minutes, 2 minutes or 3 minutes walk from here. There's a train station. The train will connect to our main Tainan City train station, and from there you can go to, you have the bus and everything to go to the historical sites. So after the conference, you can visit Thailand for a few days. Okay, Thailand is a beautiful city. I mean, it never rains. Seldom rain, I should say. Seldom rain during the winter. So it's a pleasant city. So take this opportunity, and also important, the most important is make some of the friends during today's event, so that in the future you might be able to cooperate with your friends on all of your tasks. So I wish you today have enjoyed staying in this conference and a fruitful stay, and also very successful workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang. Next, let's move on to the first section. I would like to invite Dr. Zhang to introduce Director Satoshi Matsuoka. Thank you. Please, Dr. Zhang.
Good morning again. It's my great honor to introduce to you Professor Matsuoka from RIKEN Center. He's currently the director of the Center for Computational Science. And in the meantime, he holds a professorship at the Tokyo Institute of Technology. Dr. Matsuoka is a very famous person, and I don't think he needs a lot of introduction. During his tenure, he's got many international prestigious awards, including Golden Bell Prize and all those kind of things. So he's a very high caliber researcher in Japan. He also was he was the mastermind behind the Fugaku supercomputer, and which was the #1 in the top 500 for quite a few years. So today he's going to talk to us about what's coming next. What will be the next Fugaku? And I remember in this April I visited RIKEN. I had a chance to talk to him, and he's very deep insights in many aspects of computational science really awe me, and I hope you guys today can learn as much as I learned during that visit. Thank you, and let's welcome Dr. Matsuoka.
Yes, and it's always a pleasure to be visiting Taiwan. Of course, I go more often to Taipei, but sometimes I come down to places like Kaohsiung, Hainan, and Taichung. But irrespective, Taiwan is fantastic. One of my favorite places to visit, and it's always a pleasure and honor to visit my colleagues at NCHC and discuss the future of computing. So today, as was introduced, I will talk about about what's next. And by the way, I'm wearing a mask because I probably have influenza. So, and I have fever. But as you will see, later, it will not be a heavy concern for you, okay? which is proven by simulation of Fugaku. Okay? So what does our center do? So our center, okay. So our center is one of the 13 centers of RIKEN. RIKEN, of course, is the top science institute in Japan. And what we do is science of computing, which is like computer science, but high-end. But unlike traditional computer science departments in universities, we put even more emphasis on science by computing, or in this case, computational science. These fantastic scientific results of computing applied to other scientific disciplines to make advances in innovation there. And then there's science for computing, other scientific disciplines making computing to the advances in computing, like brain-inspired immortal computing, or more recently, quantum computing. So synergy of all three, and we do all three of them. The synergy of all three allows us to progress forward to the next iteration of computing. So we have a fairly comprehensive set of people. These are the team leaders, and you'll see many people. And we are still hiring. We'll have a new digital twin team, and so announced that. We also have a female PI recruitment plan. So if you want to work in Japan by your mid-career or senior, want to become a PI, please apply. And of course, these are all team leaders. And if we have many positions that we're soliciting, in fact, over 50 researchers. So postdoc, full-time researcher, and of course, if you have students, please feel free to send them to internship. We have a fairly comprehensive internship program. Yeah. So in any case, we very much we're still growing. Ever since I took office, we've grown to double the size, and we're still growing. We'll have a new division on AI and science starting next year. So Fugaku, I'll do a little bit talk about Fugaku just to set things in context. Fugaku, or as an alternative name for in Japanese, is basically, it represents idealism of supercomputing, in that it's a simultaneous satisfaction of something that has a very high peak, but also have a very broad base. So, because previous Japanese supercomputers have been mostly have a very high performance, but had a very narrow applicability. So they're like Tokyo Tower, new Tokyo Tower, something like that. But in this modern day IT, it's very important to have a process of applications, process of user base, process of applications of various sorts, etc., etc. So, in order to solve real scientific problems, not to do just hero ones. So we set out to design something that looks fairly ginormous. This is just a front panel, a Google machine in 3D, looks like that. So it's very big. It occupies about 3,000 square meters. Has 432 cabinets, 160,000 nodes. It uses 60 megawatts, which seems a lot. But when you divide 16 megawatts by 160,000, you find it only uses 100 watts. And if you ever fielded, let's say, a similar performance Xeon server, then these will not operate at 100 watts. These will operate at 300 watts, 400 watts. So Fugaku is an extremely power efficient machine in production. Otherwise, if we had this capability, but if we made this out of Xeons, this would have been 50 megawatts. So it would not have been sustainable. it was very important for us to design something that's not only high performance, but extremely green, extremely power efficient. And it took 10 years to do so. In fact, we started the R&D when the predecessor machine, the K computer, was just being launched. And after many steps involved, we got the machine, the first nodes. The first chip came in 18, the first nodes came in 19. We had a full installation in early 20, and then in 21, the machine was accepted and went into production early 21. And but right here, if you notice, this is right around the COVID, and I'll tell you why that is so important. But nonetheless, designing something that's very high performance, but very general at the same time is difficult. You know, it's like if you think of an automobile, designing a supercar, very fast. With it, you can go to a supermarket, carry lots of cargo, etc. It's a very difficult engineering feat. It's the same with computing. You can design something fast that has a very narrow, with specialization, like circuit specialization, that can be very narrow to focus, but will not be good for anything else. Or you can design something that's really general purpose, but very, very slower or very power hungry. So we decided to design, along with Fujitsu, design a processor which is extremely power efficient and extremely fast by incorporating a high bandwidth memory for the first time into a processor. And also the very, very low power design of processors with a 48-core chip. But also made it ARM compatible with ARM, the ARM plus the new vector extension. The result is 3 times the power performance efficiency compared to similar server chips. In fact, now a lot of chips are catching up. So the Xeon Max, the new Intel Xeon Max, which is now finally coming into the market as an HBM, but that's 5 years after we did it. The newly announced Amazon AWS Rapid Port also has HBM, but again, it's 5 years after we've done it. So again, we made some innovations, and as a result, we got extremely high performance and extreme power efficiency at the same time. But also, being ARM, it can run your standard ARM software stack. You can run Windows, even. Run PowerPoint, etc. We don't talk about PowerPoint on this machine, but we run the desktop, as you can see. We run browsers and desktops on this machine. So Fugaku, with this content, which has 60,000 of these chips, is equivalent to about 20 million smartphones that can run the same program, of course, being same ARM processor. And 20 million is the number of smartphones that are sold in a year in Japan. So it's quite a number. So we think of how many of this, if you have a few Fugakus, that covers the entire compute needs of Japan. So again, to be a little bit more nerdy, again, it's a 3 times power efficient. The first server chip CPU was 7-nanometer process, 2019. By the way, we used TSMC. So this chip was found in Taiwan. It has mainframe grade resiliency. Obviously, when you have 100,000 nodes, you need utmost resiliency. Fugaku is a very, very, very reliable machine. Yes, it's one thing to design something that's fast, but it has to be reliable. Right? Because when you have 100,000, more than 100,000 nodes, your fit rate has to improve by 100,000. So I'm ISO compliant. Also, another unique feature, people often focus on the processor, but another unique feature is here. This says Tofu D interconnect, if you can see. So if you look at Fugaku, you don't see any switches. Usually when you build a supercomputer or cloud infrastructure, you see stuff like cloud, you see top rack switches and directive switch somewhere. Even in supercomputers, you may see some leaf switches. You construct a factory, or you may construct Dragonfly, something like that. You see these arrays of switches. On Fugaku, you don't see any switches. You still see the optical interconnects, but you don't see any switches. Why is that? Well, that's because the switches are here. Not just the NICs, the network interface chips, but also the switches are embedded inside the processor. This is very much like the Blue GQ in IBM network. So, but compared to Blue GQ, the network's much faster, about 1 gigabits per second, and about half a microsecond latency. So you can think of this Fugaku as having 160,000 compute nodes, but also having 160,000 network switches. And that's why, something like that not only allows for extreme scaling and very fast, of course, very fast network, but also very low power. This, the switching fabric, the NICs, the switch, and also even the AOCs, the active optical cables, all combined, average to about 8 to 9 watts per node. Because this is really power efficient, because when you have, let's say, InfiniBand network, right? The endpoint alone uses more than 30 watts. So, so this contributes a lot to the power efficiency. So this looks like that. So this package, 384 nodes in a rack, that breaks down into something like this. We'll go into the details. Now, we say that Fugaku is the first exascale supercomputer, and that, but that really relies on what you mean by exascale. So, if you mean that FA64 performance of some kind, or either peak or LIMPAC, RMAX, then Fugaku is not that, because Fugaku's RMAX is 0.4 exaflop, or peak is 0.5. And whereas, by this definition, the Oak Ridge National Lab Frontier is the first exascale machine. But then, but we all know that FP64 LIMPAC is a useless metric in real high performance computing. So if you think of any floating point precision performance being exaflop, because in dense linear algebra, nobody really uses FP64 except for material science. So in that case, then Fugaku is the exascale machine. However, the Oak Ridge Summit machine was at FP16 peak of 3 exaflop. So by this definition, the Summit was the first exascale machine. So how do we mean? Well, we mean that the Fugaku, that first exascale, because it achieved the first machine to achieve the performances that were expected out of exascale supercomputer in real applications. Okay, so that means to achieve 50 to 100x application performance over the 10, 20 petaflop supercomputers that we had around in the early 2010s, like K, like the K computer, for example. So Fugaku achieved that. And what's the most important thing is the application performance. And by that definition, achieving 2 orders of magnitude speed up, which was expected out of exascale machine, was, Fugaku was the first machine to achieve that. So, so you can look at all the benchmarks. We're still, this is actually one edition old. So we're now number 4 on top 500. We're still number 1 in HPCG. We're number 3 on HPC. And we're still number 1 in Graph 500, and we're like number 2 in Melbourne. So, when you look at these benchmarks, they're still doing pretty good. So we're number 1 in all metrics during 2020, 2021. New machines like Frontier came about and beat us in some of the metrics, like the top 500. but still we are better than other metrics. So you can think of Fugaku as being still one of the top machines in the world. But again, what's so important is the applications. So Fugaku was not designed to be #1 on the top 500, although it was. But being #1 in top 500, or any of the benchmarks for that matter, is just a consequence or the result of a machine being developed for real applications. And these real applications were exactly what the Fugaku was designed for. And in fact, as Fugaku was being developed, the application program, there were target applications program that was running at the same time, simultaneously in parallel. And these teams, each of the individual teams were given, they were like center of excellence, and were given a mandate so that they will advance their applications, they will advance their sciences to the extent that when Fugaku was ready, they will be ready. So typically what happens is when you have building a machine, you'll build a machine, and then like 2 or 3 years later, you have the science. Okay, but we didn't want that to happen. We wanted the situation where when the machine's ready, the sciences are ready. The applications are ready. And what are these applications? Well, these are the most important ones pertaining to the societal benefits, like health and medicine, environment disaster, energy, material and manufacturing, and basic sciences. And the goal was to achieve almost 2 orders of magnitude speed up across the board in these application areas. And we did achieve that, about factor 70. Okay. And it's not to say that the Frontier didn't do this. Frontier also achieved similar improvements. In fact, when you compare the various metrics of 2 machines, I mean, some are better than the other, but you'll find that they're very similar or very comparable, except for the AI training, reduced precision AI arithmetic, matrix arithmetic. So, which was kind of new. So when you look at these 2 machines, they will likely perform quite similarly across many applications. So that's just Frontier is a great machine too. But the point is that Fugaku was launched 3 years ahead of time. So this concerted effort really gave us the opportunity to run the machine for the first time and get the sciences. So Fugaku is really full now. And you can see the other specters, you can look at all the specs. Okay, for applications, I won't really go into detail of every application run the Fugaku because that'll take a full day or even more. Just give you a few samples. So one was COVID, because when Fugaku was being installed, that was just when COVID hit us. So we had a hell of a time trying to do the installation. There were supply chain issues. There were isolation issues for the people doing installation. There were problems at the factory, et cetera, et cetera. But there a lot of heroics happened, and the machine was being installed one by one. So it took about 6 months to install, to manufacture all the nodes and install them on the floor. But then, I came up with the idea and sold it to the ministry that we have like 1/6 of the machine by February. We have 1/6 of the machine ready, sort of ready to use. We're still going on the test, but that's supposed to be released to early production. That said, okay, 1/6 of the machine, 1/6. But now the machine is more powerful than any other supercomputer in Japan. So why don't we take that and apply it to COVID? And and there were already like COVID programs on other supercomputers, but the allocation was really small. So I said, since if we dedicate this machine, we'll just allocate it to the top teams. And these people will have tremendous amount of compute power. Also, the fact that because this machine was installed, remember that a lot of these scientists were being prepared for the machine. So all these applications that ran on Fugaku anti-COVID measures were repurposed from the applications that had been in development for other purposes. And that was why we were able to rapidly launch anti-COVID programs. It's not like we developed new programs after COVID. These programs were already developed for Fugaku, but then repurposed to combat COVID. So obviously things like first principle molecular calculations at the proteomic or atomic or proteomic levels, these were very popular in other supercomputers too, and we got very good results. But most unique was, some of the unique ones were, for example, more macroscopic ones, like this more epidemiological one. But the most famous being the infection, aerosol infection, and also simulation of the pandemic phenomenon itself, how it impacts society, especially economically. So how the repurposing was done for the aerosol simulation? Well, so team led by Matsuoka, who's a professor at Kobe University, also one of our team leaders. So his team was designing this ultra high resolution, ultra scalable, and ultra flexible CFD program called Cube. So this way superseded any other CFD program that are out there commercially. But they had a new method called the Cube method, as the name implies. So they could do like billions of degrees of freedom simulations with like moving boundaries and stuff like that. Okay, and one of the things they were working on, they had dynamics, they had turbine combustion, they could even apply to like city airflow, and they're actually doing that. But one thing they're doing was to simulate internal combustion engine, like that. Very, very complicated simulation. But one property of internal combustion engine is that there's an injector, and an injector would spew a fuel either into the manifold or directly into the combustion chamber. And this phenomenon, one of the researchers noticed, hey, when someone coughs or someone sings out of karaoke, etc., the physics of this, the very complicated geometry, very, very complicated physical phenomena. For example, this is not just simulating particles. It has to simulate the evaporation of the water as it traverses through the air. Right? Because that's how injectors operate. They spew the gasoline, but they would evaporate and mix with air. Mix with air. Right? And also, some of the particles will stick to the outer walls. Very much the same if you wear a mask or like a face shield, or may stick to your clothing. Okay. So all of these have to be simulated. Very, very precise physics. Okay. But we had a capability. The only thing these aerosols don't do is to combust. So it's the same physics, and we had the program ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, one of the advantages of Cube was that it was able to handle these extremely complicated geometry with billions of degrees of freedom. In that it was able to generate these geometries from CAD data instantly. So usually when they have like unstructured mesh, generating something like this, okay, the geometry of something like this, would take weeks, okay, if not months. So just to, you can, like this human figure itself, generating a real geometry will take significant amount of time. But with Q, because it had novel methodology to automatically generate arbitrary geometry to a CFD boundaries in matters of minutes. But we are continuing to enhance the software, but also trying to proliferate the results we get onto other machines, and in particular the cloud. And also, of course, we're start design of the next generation machine. Well, AI for science, we can, not just us, but we can as a whole. We just we'll be funded for a fairly major, several $100 million AI for science effort. And we will be responsible for the systems for building a platform. Very similar for quantum HPC hybrid. This was just announced a few days ago that we will build a quantum HPC hybrid platform. Now, similar platforms have been built, let's say in Europe. Ours is unique in that we have multiple real quantum machines, multiple simulators, and hooked up to the top machines with a common software stack. So our quantum machine will be, of course, Weekend itself is developing a quantum machine. So we'll have multiple, but we'll also have quantum commercial machines with an extensive number of qubits, not 10, not like 5 or 10 qubits. We'll have a machine with more than 100 qubits. And also simulators being able to also accommodate that scale of simulation. Okay? So one thing we're doing is we realize that all the software, including applications we have built, would be quite useful in the society. But if you look at our status, if you do Fugaku status and do a Google search, you can look at our status page. And you'll see that the machine is pretty much full, 24/7. So, no matter how the machine almost gets full. But we want our software result to proliferate. So one thing is to facilitate cloud APIs on Fugaku. So Fugaku will become one of the cloud instances. But the inverse, that is to put the comprehensive software stack, including applications, more than 50 apps and growing, for each 100 applications soon, with GUIs, very easy of use environment onto the cloud. In fact, with Amazon, with AWS, they have a compatible processor now that's binary compatible, essentially binary compatible with our processor, A-Cortex. So what we're doing is to build essentially a Linux distribution, but also creating a virtual machine image. And of course, we can run this on Fugaku, but we can run this also on AWS, especially Graviton 3 instance. We can run it on x86 too. So you can pilot for that, but for the moment, we are running it on the Graviton 3 environment. And then we can coordinate it within our environment, or we can build a private environment. And this is, there's ease of use as well. And this is sort of environment that we want to proliferate, because this supercomputing software environment, to be honest, is in dark ages still. But now with new tools like Open On Demand, which we have extended, now it's called Fugaku On Demand, we now get these GUIs like this. So this is a recommended usage, no longer terminals. And you can get these calendars, you can get these various status, the summary of machine status. And you can get a list of all the applications, which you can access by menus, or just like your desktop computer, or you can click an icon. And you can even run these interactive applications on Fugaku's compute nodes. So this is running one of the visualizers. So when it was launched, so this desktop running this browser, desktop is being run on Fugaku's compute node. Okay? So everything you see here, this is running on Fugaku's compute node, but remotely. Okay? And of course, you can do batch queue submissions through the GUIs. So you select an app, then you select various things. So this is, again, this is open on demand, customized button and extended. So then you can get a batch submitted. And then of course, you can control it using GUI. You can control files for the browser. In fact, you not only control the files on your machine, on Fugaku, you can synergize it with your local files on your desktop machine. And finally, when push comes to shove, when people prefer the old ways of doing things, they can launch a console like that. Yeah. So of course, I don't like using the console terminals, but yeah, that's ultimately people can do this. Okay. Now AI for science. So AI for science. So this is a slide I stole from our good friend and colleague Rick Stevens, and we'll be working quite a bit with DOE on this. We'll be a founding member of the Trillion Parameter Consortium. But what the AI, we believe that AI will revolutionize science as much as HPC had done, but in the following way. So firstly, there are now observational models that allows you to do very large-scale segmentation, recognition, etc. But then there are generative models. The very typical one being surrogate models. Surrogate model is sort of a generative model, and it can basically generate simulations, simulated results. And of course, but there are generalized foundational models where it can generate various things like protein sequences, protein structure, genomic sequences, etc. So based on these, it can generate, because these can generate various things, it can generate codes, scientific codes, or just using the ability to come up with plans. It can control very complex simulations. You can control the simulation, not just run the simulation, but control the simulations. And also, science also generates various scientific artifacts, again, like proteomic structures. So if you combine all these abilities, we believe that a lot of the mundane tasks that are being done by scientists today, and there are scientists' PDCA cycle. Right? So what scientists do is they will plan an experiment. They may conduct an experiment. They may run simulations or do experiments. They would analyze the data and then think about it, and they will rerun the experiment on new parameters. They repeat that until they get to scientific insights. So much of this PDCA cycle may be automated using these as tools. So ultimately, our goal, making AI for science, is to put scientists out of their jobs. Okay? I mean, out of some of the jobs, not all the jobs. That's to get rid of a lot of mundane activities, and then have people, the scientists, focus on the real creative nature of science. Because we have too many lab slaves, especially like biology labs. There are too many slaves belaboring on pipettes, feeding animals, all those mundane things, which should not be the case. Okay. So, in fact, this is already happening. So, especially with surrogates and generative models, in fact, on Fugaku, most of the scientific teams are already conducting AI for science or putting AI into the workflow. So it's not really new anymore. But still, we're trying to make it more comprehensive. Oops, sorry. So this instance of the ability to serve in Tsunami. This is AI-assisted find an element method, which gives you like 25x speed up, give it effectively 10 exascale performance on earthquake. This is a generating hard body shape, so they can optimize not only CFD properties, but also to beautify some of the beautification metrics to come up with the best hard design. And this is a drug design. It's hard not Japanese. But part of it is the drug design portfolio. There's a lot of generative AI involved in generating speech going up, like for example, genetic sequences. So, in fact, but the difference between science of AI versus AI for science is that traditional AI done by computer scientists is basically to try to tackle AI problems that have very little models underneath. So image recognition, natural language understanding. But what we're trying to do with AI for science is to solve the most difficult scientific problems using AI. So as a consequence, most of the research of AI focused on computer science arena, focused on traditional data sets of traditional AI problems like natural language text-oriented images that are abundant. And also the value metric is heavily focuses on training. Because how you're evaluating is the same. My model is better than yours. My trained model is better than yours. Okay? Whereas in science, creating a model is like creating a program, an application. The real objective is to discover something new in science. So there will be heavy focus on inference and not training. Okay? You're trying to run. You're not just a model, you try to run it to make scientific discoveries. And because of the properties of training versus inference, they're very, very computationally different. Inference is very, training is very much, especially batch training, extremely compute heavy. Whereas inference is memory bound. Very different machine characteristics. Okay? So we're trying to, well, that said, we are trying to enhance our training capability because we do have to do customized training or real-time training or customized training of existing models. So the team led by Yokota is giving us the ability to train hundreds of millions, not billions, to perhaps train parameter, but not from scratch. So we will have the ability to train a billion parameter model, but what we want to do is not to train from scratch because that's a waste of time. We will take existing models and customize it. That's what's necessary. In fact, the goal is to establish something like this. So we have an existing pre-trained model. Okay? And you would do accelerated foundation model training with additional incoming data. But what's important is that even when you have foundation model, when you don't do anything, it's useless because these models will be so highly inaccurate. So what you need to do is to fine-tune the model. Okay? Well, what's good about science is that in fine-tuning, you can automate the process because you have ground truth. For example, when you're trying to fine-tune the structure of a molecule, you have a ground truth. So it's not like typical AI where the humans will have to get involved, right, to make these decisions. But in science, these reinforcement learning can be done in an automated fashion using simulation or even experiments. So there'll be this loop to improve the precision of the model. Okay? And of course, sometimes when you get new data, you'll create another foundational model, improved foundational model, then you fine tune it. But this establishment of this automated loop of customizing and fine tuning the model automatically is our goal. Okay? And that will put scientists out to work. So what we're doing, so we wrote this white paper, okay, for computing, and now we are writing a white paper for AI for science. And we'll finish up, we'll have the first version in March. We got more than 50 volunteers. We're paying a little bit of money. But a lot of the scientific teams have volunteered. And we'll be writing up, it's just like the DOE had published a report here for science, so we have our own version. But we want all these efforts to be concerted efforts. So if you're interested, please let me know, because we very much like to work together to make these reports be very, very rich and comprehensive. And we are also building, enhancing Fugaku with some acceleration features for real-time training and inference, and to some extent some additional training. So we have a modest, we'll building a modest acceleration, GPU acceleration portion, with maybe a few thousand GPUs, but tightly coupled with Fugaku. And that'll be coming in a couple of years. Now, with quantum, we have a quantum center that's building a quantum computer. But our role is to put the quantum, especially quantum hybrid with supercomputers, to production. So we now have a new effort. And the big issue is how will quantum computing and classical supercomputing collaborate? Because we haven't, nobody has really answered this problem. In fact, one of the recent papers by Forrest Hoffner, one of my research mates, collaborators, so basically said, the paper they wrote said, practical quantum supremacy has to be exponential in terms of speed up compared to classical algorithm. So something like Shor's algorithm is good, but Grover's algorithm, that's very popular, it only gives you quadratic speed up, so it's not useful. So for pure quantum algorithm, none exists that through quadratic speed up can be expected correctly in current disk machines. Well, that said, Shor's algorithm may break ours in 2048, but will require about 20 million disk qubits. But not everything is very rosy for quantum. But we still see a future, because in the future, we believe that most of the compute will still be classical. But for areas where we can expect exponential speed up, and these are typically material science problems, nuclear physics problems, can be done, or may be best done with quantum computers of the future. So, but it's important to come to a system where these things can be run as a hybrid. Thus, we are building infrastructure so that people can do innovative algorithm development. So we're building a quantum infrastructure. Ready. But we'll have a quantum components, real quantum computers, several of them. One being more than 100 qubits. And also quantum simulators. We can run simulators on Fugaku. We're running tensor network-based simulators on GPU machines. And then, but the real crux of the effort will be to run a software stack that will be common across all the quantum machines, including simulators, but also allow for this hybrid programming to be done with these. And these will be tightly coupled. Okay, finally, FugakuNEXT. And I have two too much time. But basically, Fugaku's history took 10 years to develop, and we are started our effort already. We are undergoing another feasibility study. And we have the applications, we have the benchmarks, but the key is that most of the applications we see are memory bound. They're not compute bound. So again, something like LENPAC has no meaning. And also, AI training is compute bound, but AI inference is memory bound. So, but what the biggest challenge is, okay, so it's memory bound, memory to processing element, data movement will be bound. What will be bound by? It will be bound mostly by energy. And if we want to do a speed up, okay, so compute is fine. So we can achieve something like, a few hundred exaflop and FP16 or something like that. That'll be easy to do. But the most difficult part is memory. So things like LPDDR or HBM will not cut it. We definitely have to go to 3D memory configuration. But even so, we have to reduce the energy for data movement down to about 0.2 picojoules per bit. That's a bit of data read from memory onto the processor on the average. And that's really, really tough. So that's a challenge we are undertaking. And so we're looking at various, with that, some system built with LPDDR or HBM will be nowhere near our goal. So we do have to commit to 3D stacking memory, by which we can achieve pretty much the required performance, but with very high bytes per flock ratio, because again, things will be memory. For this, we need to deal with most advanced 3D memory technologies, and also photonics for long-range silicon photonics. And because these are all details or NDA, we can't really tell you the details, unfortunately. But what I can tell you is this time, unlike the previous Fugaku, here's how we're doing the feasibility study, is that we got the usual suspects, not only the Japanese vendor like Fujitsu, but also vendors like NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, HPE, ARM. So, and also collaborating significantly with the US DOE. Because we realized that this is such a huge challenge, not just for us, but internationally. That is, unless we solve this memory energy problem, which requires a lot of changes in the way memory is configured in the processor. And also, it's not the hardware, the program models we change because there will be some memory acceleration. More like, instead of being a GPU, CPU, there's bandwidth accelerator, like BPU, basically. And thus we have to change some of the program models. It would be a huge challenge, and involving our friendly vendors, and try to innovate and have the results proliferate, not just to a single machine, but globally, okay, to the cloud, to all the AI, and of course to HPC. So that's our current plan. Okay, with that, I'd like to end my talk, and thank you very much. I still feel well, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Madduri.
due to the time limitation, we'll have open for a couple of questions. Any questions? Please, can someone give microphone, please? Microphone, please. Okay.
Hello. Thank you. I hope you're feeling better now. Thank you for that very comprehensive talk about Fugaku. I got a chance to actually visit ORML and see Frontier for myself. And the thing that I asked them is, I'm really curious to know, can you walk us through concisely on the cooling system that you implement on Fugaku, and how many gallons of water are you using?
Yeah, sorry, I have to skip that part due to time restrictions, and I'll try to be very brief. But we use water cooling, about 90% of the machine's water cooled. Compared to the HPE EX, which Frontier and other machines use, it's largely the same. The only difference is that on the EX system, the power supplies are water cooled, but in our case, they're not. So that's the only air element. But otherwise, and also the CDU, we don't have a CDU, but we use high pressure pumps to feed the racks, which we believe is a better solution than having localized CDU. That's a very detailed, I don't want to do it or the time. But largely, Fugaku is very stable and efficient because of excessive water cooling. But water cooling 160,000 tons, with even temperature is a big challenge. So a water movement. Oh, and one thing we do is we have part of our electricity, not all of it, but part of our electricity is generated by our turbine generator. Okay, so we get a lot of power from the grid. We also run a turbine generator, and we balance the load depending on the cost of gas, liquid natural gas versus electricity. We also use the waste heat from the turbines to run an absorption chiller to cool down water. So we're doing some energy recovery. So we get about 50% efficiency on our turbine generator because on the turbine you get nearly 40%, but we gain additional about 50% by having it cooled by assist chilling the water. Well, that's yeah. It's a big infrastructure.
Thank you.
Any other question? I have one for you. In your AI for science, will you still be following a generative type transformer model, or you want to come up with a new model to do it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. In general, we believe before transformers have shown their generality, so for the mainstream, we'll likely be doing that. With that said, we are also very interested in the models like GWMV, which is based on still based on current neural networks that have shown effectiveness. It's lower. The computational requirements are much lower and more amenable to CPU type processing or memory bound processing. So we're very interested in that too. And also there are new models, types of like combined models, like Transformer Plus searches and things like that. So we expect that it's not so much entirely new models will appear, but there'll be evolutions of the model based on transformers, but adding some additional elements.
All right, thank you.
Your center for your national wise to use. Is there built any of the data center under your Fugaku.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and how do they support the whole nation? Your whole nation uses.
Oh.
Is there any policy or?
Well, firstly, we are, of all the public sector data centers, we are by far the biggest in Japan. I mean, there are private data centers that are big, but for the public data center, we're the biggest amongst all the publicly owned data centers, by order of magnitude. Now, we don't, but we're not as secure, 100% secure environments. We don't run like you. We don't store deep down government secrets, or we can't directly run like military applications, because RICAN is by rule not supposed to do that. That said, there are a lot of cases where the government ministries and agencies, they get special privileged time on Fugaku when they have problems. For example, the National Meteorological Agency, they really wanted to improve the forecast of these torrential rain events. And they asked us, and they were allocated a special allocation for government agencies. And they did it. They got fantastic results. They made significant advances forward for these forecasts. In fact, they liked it so much, they decided to buy their own machines to do real forecasts, which is pretty amazing. But nonetheless, yes, we do. And also, we work with some, are starting to work with some of the security agencies to run some of their dual purpose type of applications, like a projectile hitting this metallic surface or things like that. Yeah. So Fugaku is used quite extensively by government agencies.
Okay, so I think this concludes this session. And thank you, Professor Matsuoka, again. Let's give him a round.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Saka. Before the coffee break, I would like to invite Dr. Chao Liangzhang and Dr. Satoshi Matsuoka to take the stage for a group photo. And also invite Dr. Baozhu Zhan to come up to the stage for a group photo. Please come over. 中控室，请帮我开灯，谢谢。Okay, please look at the cameraman in the front. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. Okay, thank you. And please return your seat. We'll have a group photo with every attendees as well. 摄影师，我们要再跟台下的所有人再合照。We will have a group photo with every attendee on the seat. Okay, 1, 2, 3, cheese. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining the morning section, and we will have the coffee break till 11 o'clock. We'll come back to this conference room at 11 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we stick on the agenda. I think we'll start this session. The first speaker is Sean Smith. I would like to give a very brief introduction of Sean Smith. He's currently the director of Australian National Computational Infrastructure, NCI, and conjointly professor for computational nanomaterial science and technology at the Australian National University. And he has extensive theoretical and computational research experiences in chemistry, nanomaterial, and nanobioscience and technology. and he joined, in 2014, he joined UNSW, Sydney. He's founding and directing the Integrated Material Design Centers to drive integrated program for material design, discovery, and characterizations. And before that, he actually directed the US Department of Energy, DOE, funded centers for nanophase material science at Oak Ridge National Laboratories, one of the 5 major DOE nanoscience research and user facilities in the US. And through 2011 and 2013 triennial phase, this is where when he directed in Oak Ridge National Lab. And so without further ado, please let's have a warm welcome Sean to give us the talk.
Okay. Thank you very much, Fang Pang, for the warm introduction. And it's a great pleasure to be able to make a presentation for this symposium in Taiwan. And I was fortunate to meet Director Zhang and his colleagues from the NCHC recently in Denver, at which it was very good to connect and to catch up again. So good to connect once again today. What I will do now is share my screen. And we'll go into presentation mode. Okay, so I hope that is coming up all right. So this particular talk is a broad introduction to NCI and its operations. I understand from the agenda for this meeting that I should provide some perhaps stronger emphasis around our data infrastructure activities. And I'm happy to do that as we go through, but I hope that by the end of the talk you will have a reasonable overview of NCI, what it does in Australia and regionally, and some directions that we are advancing collectively with our fellow facilities across the region. So as the title says, hyperconverged infrastructure, including cloud, AI, simulations, visualization, and so forth, is in a sense, the theme that I wish to present today is the holistic integration of all of these different ingredients of a modern tier 1 supercomputing and data facility. So let me just proceed. It's traditional here in Australia to acknowledge the first Australians on whose lands I present to you from, the Ngunnawal people here in Canberra, and to pay my respect to their elders past and present. And in front of you here you see, connected with our infrastructure platforms here at NCI, we have 2 commissioned Indigenous artworks. The one on the left-hand side, the bright blue, is the artwork created by Lenise Church, who was a local artist, in connection with the launch of our Gaudi supercomputer. It was launched in January 2020, just before COVID hit, so we were very lucky to get that machine up at that time. And the artwork on the right, which has more purple in it, is the artwork that is connected with our cloud platform, produced by Anthony Best, again a local artist. So I'll tell you now a little more about those platforms. How do I move these slides forward? Okay, that's it there. Okay, so we have 2 tier 1 facilities here in Australia. One of them is the NCI in Canberra, East Coast, as you can see, on the campus of the Australian National University. And the other one is the Pawsey Supercomputing Centre, which is out in Perth on the West Coast. The 2 facilities both service, in a sense, all of our research, computationally intensive research sector here in Australia. However, they do have somewhat different major stakeholder engagements above and beyond the broad spectrum of research support. The Pawsey Centre was set up about a decade ago in connection with Australia's bid to host this square kilometre array, which is an enormous international radio astronomy facility. And so the Pawsey Centre has had a traditional heavy engagement with radio astronomy for that reason. At NCI, we have had traditionally a very strong engagement with the climate, weather and geospatial modelling communities. And you'll see as we go forwards a little more about our governance structure, which in a sense represents that strong engagement. So NCI is a premier facility in Australia together with its partner Pawsey. We provide high performance computing for all research domains across the country, including cloud computing and, very importantly, data storage and services as well. We have something on the order of 8,000 or 9,000 users on our books. Active users who are on regularly, it's around about 5,000-ish at this point in time, which already gives you a sense of an enormous breadth of demand and an enormous breadth of workflows that we necessarily have to be able to service on our systems. And we'll go on to talk a little more about the Gaudi supercomputing platform, but it was architected in such a way that we could indeed support an enormously wide range of workflows that are coming out of the research sector from those many, many users across the country. We have the Gaudi supercomputer, as it was launched in 2020, had something in excess of about 1 billion hours of compute per year available, both GPU and CPU components. We've just done a mid-cycle upgrade this year on the CPU side, which pushes it out to about close to 2 billion hours of compute time are now available on our facilities. We have on the order of 100 petabytes of storage. 70 of that is high-speed Lustre file systems on disk, spinning disk, and another 30 or 40 petabytes of tape storage, which is for longer-term archive purposing. Okay, so let's keep going. Yes, now I did indicate to you that I would say a little bit about our governance structure, because it does in some sense explain why we've been doing so much of the particular deep dive engagements that we have around very large scale sovereign data sets. So we have, when NCI was set up in its current form about 11 years ago, 12 years ago perhaps, it was set up as a collaborative consortium involving 4 foundation collaborators. This was the ANU, on whose campus our facility sits in Canberra here, and 3 Australian Commonwealth government departments, the Bureau of Meteorology, the CSIRO, and Geoscience Australia. And so it has been, because of this long-running engagement with the government agencies who have very large and focused research missions, that has in some ways shaped the way that NCI has developed its capabilities. And you can see the climate, weather and the geospatial is right across these 3 agencies whom we have been engaging with. More recently, we have taken on actually not 1 but 2 more major collaborators on the same level of investment as these original 4. UNSW Sydney about 2 years ago became a major collaborator with representation on our board as a part of their own strategic roadmap to advance their capabilities in high performance computing and data services. And just actually last week, we had public announcement of our 6th major collaborator, which is the New South Wales Department of Planning and Environment. So that's the first state government agency to join at that level of commitment in our consortium. And that's being driven, you may wonder, well, hang on, Department of Planning and Environment, how does that plug in? It's really connected with the whole climate and weather modeling and data set requirements, which are growing quite dramatically because of climate change and more extreme weather patterns. now state governments are having to invest quite significantly in modeling capability and robust data sets as a part of their own due diligence to be able to predict events and predict in real time what happens when an event has started. And also to be able to estimate risks, risks around suburban planning, for example. Can we build a new suburb in this part of the city or not? Or is the risk too high given the trends that we're seeing in simulated weather environment developments? And so this is becoming a really big issue at state level now, and we see this now as the DPE from New South Wales have invested quite strongly in working with the NCI in this space. And then beyond that, we have a host of collaborators from across the country, most of the universities in the country, and a number of industry partners as well, who engage with us at somewhat lower levels, but still quite significant. So in the end of the day, given the Commonwealth Government invests in our major upgrades for the big new machines, and they invest about 25% of our year-on-year OPEX. The remaining 75% comes from all these other collaborators that you see on the screen. So at the end of the day, the Commonwealth Government is able to leverage about $2 for every $1 that it invests into our facility, which it's been a reasonably healthy business model and reasonably stable over the last decade. And it's actually growing quite strongly now for some of the reasons I summarized to you. Okay, so it will not be surprising to you that we have to host anything from very fundamental and outstanding research that's done within individual groups and universities through strategic mission-based research of large agencies, and then out into applied and even some industrial components. The industry component of what we do has been relatively minor for us. It's largely been focused around helping SMEs, small to medium enterprises, to be able to bootstrap their activities and grow. I should imagine I should say I know, in fact, that is going to grow quite strongly in the near future, because there is now a very strategic push on the part of federal government to bolster and support transformational research going out into industry. And I know from my own former discussions with my colleagues at NCHC that Taiwan is very far advanced in your engagement with industry, which is a very impressive thing for us to look to and learn from. I have mentioned that we have supercomputing and cloud computing platforms, the Gaudi supercomputer and the Niran cloud facility, connected with the large file systems that we support, on which we maintain very significant national data collections. We also have specific tools to help users to analyze these very large data sets, a rapidly growing focus on AI platforms, but also visualization and simulation has become a significant service that we can offer to our user communities. You'll see a little example of that later on. And we have quite a substantive push in recent years into the genomics sector, which is now growing quite rapidly for us. So I guess the message here is that integrating all of the different components that need to sit centrally and around high-intensity computing and data services has been a key driver and thrust for us over this past 5 years, I would say. If you were to dial back, 5 or 6 years and to look at NCI as it was a more traditional big computer, running a big computer efficiently and welcoming those researchers who felt they knew how to use it, basically. But that's no longer, it's no longer what we do that, but it's a much broader environment that we need to engage with these days. We've got the growth of commercial cloud and the growth of new domains that are coming into and expecting things from tier 1 facilities such as the bio and genomics domains, who have different needs and different usage patterns from the traditional HPC. And so being able to integrate all of these different facets and make them kind of click and work well together, and also being able to pay close attention to the demands of new and emerging communities has become a major strategic and business thrust for us in these recent years. Okay, let me come to the computing platforms themselves. As I mentioned, Gaudi was launched in January 2020, just before COVID hit, in Australia at least. It was around 10 petaflops when we launched it, dropped in at number 24 on the top 500 list. We designed it deliberately to be a heterogeneous infrastructure which would support many different types of workloads. And so we had roughly 30% throughput was on the NVIDIA V100 GPUs, and roughly 70% throughput was on the Intel Cascade Lake at the time, CPUs. And so of course we ran that spec for the top 500 on the CPU side only, just on the Cascade Lake cores. As I said, we've done a mid-cycle upgrade this year on the CPU side, which is Intel now, the same basic liquid-cooled architecture, fronted up by Fujitsu, with a range of different back-end contractors, but this time with the latest Intel cores, the Sapphire Rapids cores. So it's been a very reliable machine over the 4 years now that it's been running. It reached full capacity at the end of last year, which is why we knew we had to do a mid-cycle upgrade this year. When we got the new supercomputer up, Gaudi, we decided that we would then build a shoulder cloud capacity in order for ease of use, essentially, particularly for new and emerging user communities to be able to come in and find their favorite tools that would allow them to be able to exploit the big compute and the big data, which sits on our platforms. And so we purposely designed the near-in cloud. We did it simply by repurposing the previous supercomputer. And now progressively we're acquiring new hardware to support that near-in cloud. But it has played an important role for us, amongst other things that we're doing that I will point out as we move on. So a note on the file systems and the national data collections. As I said, around about 100, more than 100 now petabytes of storage, most of which is very high-speed Linux, Lustre file systems, excuse me, on disk. And this has been something that NCI had to cut its teeth on very early because of our engagement with those government agencies that I mentioned. To give you an example, the Bureau of Meteorology and also Geoscience Australia are signatories for Australia with international data agreements by which data sets are pulled down from satellites all around the globe for our part of the globe in the Asian region. And it was recognized that those sorts of data sets need to be accessed by multiple different research communities. And so simply pulling them down into Geoscience Australia and having them sit there wasn't going to cut it, because other communities and other out of the university sector or other agencies can't reach it there. And for that reason, it was agreed that NCI would host these significant national and regional data sets and manage them and curate them and make sure that they're fully accessible and fair and so on and so forth. And so it was really through that engagement with those agencies and the imperative of being able to share those data sets that NCI very early on I guess when I compare with our international sister facilities, we kind of got on that pathway somewhat earlier because of these demands coming from our major stakeholders. So we do have very high speed data transfer within our data hall from the spinning disk arrays across into the Gaudi supercomputer. Approximately back of an envelope 50 times faster than the absolute maximum speed you could extract from the main links across the country. And that's necessary because of the magnitude of data that needs to be analyzed within given workflows to have that super fast transfer of data in and out of the computer, of the supercomputer. And I think I've summarized for you the sorts of national data sets that we have been hosting and managing for some time now. Increasingly now we're getting engaged in hosting genomics data sets, which bring their own challenges. You know, there are some things which are related and similar, and we know how to do, but there are other things that we are still learning. Obviously, appropriate security around identifiable data and so forth is incredibly important, and that's something that we've been focusing to build out for 2 or 3 years now. And we are making significant progress, but still some ways to go. Okay, so that's some comments then about what we're doing with data sets and the management for multiple community hosting. So as I mentioned, this then, on the back of having the data and having the analysis environment, AI is becoming a core component of those analysis environments. And so we do have very strong push currently to build AI platforms that will accelerate the analysis of these very large data sets. Additionally, as I mentioned a little earlier, visualization is a very powerful tool, not just for analysis of the data sets, but also for dissemination of the results and the impact that the public can then readily see and visualize and appreciate. So that's also a key thing. We build tailored environments for analysis for different sorts of communities, from genomics through geophysics and so forth, and basically making it as easy as possible for different communities to get in and extract the value that they need from those data sets. Okay, this is a slightly different slide, but a non-trivial one, as it turns out. I did mention that the Gaudi supercomputer was launched just prior to COVID, right? And that we as a country were very lucky to have it up and running at that point. We started an engagement with our colleagues in Singapore, the NSCC, and in part they were in real strife because they were trying to build their new Aspire 2 supercomputer and the data center to go with it, but then COVID hit and they were in lockdown and they couldn't get it done. And so they were really limping on a very old machine and not able to manage all of the workflows. So we collaborated with NSCC and we did a lift and shift of their major user, which is the Singapore Climate Center, and pulled that climate modeling across to Gaudi for about 18 months while they were completing the installation of their new supercomputer there. And that was great. It worked very well for both of us, for both organizations. One of the things that we became aware of when I talked with my colleague Tan up in Singapore about how they're looking at things going forwards was this question of the enormous power utilization of these systems and the increasing imperative to try to go to try to move to a zero carbon emission status. And what we realized and have started to appreciate more recently the significance of it is that the Australian Capital Territory, which hosts NCI, the ACT, the Australian Capital Territory, which encompasses Canberra City, since the last 3 years, it took them a few years to get it done, but they've built contracts and had a build out of renewable energy farms all around Canberra, solar and wind mostly. And as of about 2 to 3 years ago, the ACT electricity grid is zero emission because all the power is coming from a renewable supply around about Canberra, which is really good for NCI because we run zero emissions and we are one of only 2 tier 1 or tier 0 facilities globally, as I understand, which currently have that status. The other one is the Lumi facility in Finland, which runs next to a hydropower plant for their power source. So it's becoming important, and when you look into it and do a little bit of calculations, you realize because NCI pulls many workloads from all across Australia, from states which don't have a clean electricity grid, grids which rely on fossil fuel, obviously, in other parts of the country, we actually, year on year, are running on the order of about 40%, I think was the latest number, carbon negative. because we save emissions from compute that if it ran in the other states of Australia would be generating those carbon emissions because the electricity is fossil fuel based, right? So significant things to be aware of and part of discussions regionally for us at this point in time. I need to move along because I see we're approaching half past the hour. So I'll try to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes or so to allow a little bit of time for questions. We, as a part of engaging with the broader public community and helping them to understand what a supercomputing facility actually supports, we've developed what we call science and technology flagships, which highlight these big kind of areas that we invest significant effort together with our major stakeholders to advance. And I think it's no surprise to you, these three are the ones that we've gone for initially. We launched these earlier this year. One is an AI technology flagship. Another one is the climate, weather and geospatial geosciences flagship, and also the biomedical and genomics science flagship. And so now we tend to promote the good things that get done and that come out of our work with our stakeholders under these banners, if you will. I did mention visualization, and I thought I'd just show you this very briefly. It's a little bit jumpy because there's probably too much data for running it on my little laptop here. But this is not a satellite image. This is a high quality visual rendering of simulations that were undertaken. So just after Gaudi was launched in 2020, we had some major projects to stress test the machine. One of which was this one here that was doing an unprecedented resolution of 400 meters, simulating an entire region of Australia that a cyclone hit a few years ago. Cyclone Debbie it was. About 5 years ago it hit the coast of Queensland. And so this is a full-scale simulation, the results of which have then been visualized. And you can do this not just looking through this lens visually, but you can analyze it for water content, moisture, wind directions, almost anything you like, you can extract from these data sets and visualize them. Okay, another thing I'll touch on then, which is also very important for us, is an understanding of going forwards, where do we think is going to be the major impact of facilities such as NCI in Australia, potentially NCHC in Taiwan as well, and our other regional facilities in this larger ecosystem within which we sit. And obviously interoperability with other components of the ecosystem is critical. For us in Australia, we're looking at interoperability with our government stakeholders, the agencies, with our international partner facilities, obviously across the country with PAWSI, also with commercial cloud. We have a substantive program underway establishing interoperability between ourselves and AWS here in Australia. And it's also kicking off somewhat in parallel, but we started our lessons learned journey, if you will, with AWS, but we're now also starting to move that with Azure and Google. And we've discovered that there are very good reasons and important reasons why we should have that interoperability. One of the key things, though, is that NCI manages these sovereign data sets, and there has to be a unique place where they sit and get managed. And so we're building models whereby users could come out of Amazon land, for example, run compute either at NCI or on NCI's space in Amazon, and pull the data as needed where we keep it from where we keep it at NCI to support their work. Okay, this slide connects with regional discussions around potential regional collaboration to reach exascale compute capacity that most of our economies can't make it on our own. You just heard from Professor Matsuoka, Satoshi Matsuoka, around the amazing facilities that they've built in Riken, the Fugaku machine and the next machine on the way, which is staggering and amazingly impressive. Having said that, many of our other economies are not able to do that on our own in the way Japan can. And so there are live discussions going on as to whether we can find the political co-alignment to co-invest in a joint facility that would allow us all to advance our capabilities as needed. But I won't say any more about that at this point. Last slides then, I'll touch on here, is just to alert you to the fact that many of you will know the Supercomputing Asia Conference, which typically runs in February in Singapore. So in 2024, following our detailed collaborations with our colleagues in Singapore at NSCC, we decided we're going to relieve them of the burden, at least for 1 year, and we will run Supercomputing Asia in Sydney in February 2024. So it'll be right downtown by the harbour at the International Convention Centre. The dates are 19 through 22. And so I did want to bring that to your attention and give you the warmest of welcomes to think about coming down to join this. It'll be a unique event, certainly in Australian history in this space. And I think a nice change and a new flavour, if you will, for the Supercomputing Asia Conference. Oh, the themes, by the way, are Exascale readiness in AI, HPC, and quantum. We work obviously with our sister facilities around the region, and these on the 7 organisations here you see are co-organisers. Although NCI is doing kind of the heavy lifting at the centre, but we work together with our other facilities as well on this. We have a really wonderful array of plenary speakers, including Dieter Kranzemüller from the LRZ in Munich, Francisco Doblo Reyes from the Barcelona Center, and Rick Stevens, head of supercomputing at Aragon, and also Thorsten Höfler, who is AI lead at the CSCS in Switzerland and professor at ETH Zurich. And we have Claudius Sandberg, Ethel Villafranca, and Mitch Goodwin doing AI panel diversity and inclusion panel discussion, which is also a plenary session. So look, registrations are live. I think the early bird rego might have just closed out at the end of November, but standard registration is maybe 1,200 instead of 1,000, not too much different. I took a bigger copy of that QR scan code there that may help you to get to the registration, but if you just Google SCA24 Australia, I'm sure you'll find the website by which you can register. So a very, very warm welcome to all of you to think about coming down under in February next year. Okay, that brings me to the end, and I will stop. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. We'd like to open a couple of questions. Any questions from the floor? And anyone planning to go to Sydney in February? Okay. So if you want to speak, mine actually is at your chair arm. Okay, because of time limitations, thank you, Sean.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And we will circulate your message of the meetings around this community. Thanks again. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Fangfang.
I would like to okay, our next speaker is Ravi Madduri, and he actually canceled his flight in the last minute because of the family matters. And without further ado, actually he is willing to give a presentation online. I would like to give a very brief introduction of him. He's now wearing 2 hats. One is as a computer scientist of data science and learning divisions in Argonne National Lab. And the key role is to accelerate science by developing and applying HPC and large-scale data management technologies. Another hat that he wears as a senior scientist in University of Chicago Consortium for Advanced Science and Engineering. The main task is to collaborate, enable collaboration in developing and applying AI HPC methods to biomedicines. So from these two hands, you probably can have a grasp of what he's undertaking. And I would like to mention a little bit further of what he has done before. He actually is the lead architect of the reliable file transfer, which has been used in major tools in the community TerraGrid. It's a very big NSF program. And he also implemented grid file transfer patterns in the Java cockpit and developed a remote application virtualization infrastructures. And this has been incorporated in the grid service offering toolkits and used in NCI, which Sean just mentioned, information system. And I think another one, he's a key contributor to cancer bioinformatics grid. And I think the most well-known the work that has been done is actually the leadership in, one of the leadership in the development of the grid FTP. It's been widely used, in particular in big science, for instance, inframeters, gravitational wave observatory, and large hadron colliders. And of course, also it is part of the NEES grid projects, which is kind of incorporate grid technology to earthquake engineering research. Please have a warm welcome to Ravi.
Thank you, Fang Bang. That was a really kind introduction. Can you hear me okay? Am my voice coming through fine?
Yeah, good, Ravi. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm really sorry that I couldn't be there in person to give this talk. I'm very honored that I got the invitation to come attend and listen to other speakers and present my views. But because of a medical emergency in the family, I decided to stay back and be with my family in this difficult time. But I'm glad for the opportunity to talk about some of the recent work that we've been doing at Argonne in building a infrastructure, a capability for privacy-preserving federated learning, which we think is an important capability that allows researchers to build robust and trustworthy AI models for science. I really hope that this talk builds on some of the important capabilities that Sean mentioned ahead of me, and will give you a perspective for in this current cybersecurity and privacy enhancement technologies part of the conference. So let me first acknowledge that the work that I'm presenting today is funded by the Department of Energy in the U.S. government under Office of Science under the contract that is on the slide. We're very grateful for the funding and support that the Department of Energy has provided this work. So the motivation for this work came from a few things that made the advances of AI be applied to medicine. As some of you may know, that one of the important papers that came in Nature Medicine, where Google developed this AI model that did wonders in predicting diabetes retinopathy in a patient population in the US. This model was incredibly accurate in predicting patients that have diabetes retinopathy, and the results were really good, and it kind of heralded the AI revolution in medicine, in biomedicine. And as you know, if a follow-on study of that model found that that model didn't do very well in a clinical trial in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. And we think the reason why these models that have really high accuracy don't do well is because of this challenge called data set shift in machine learning. Our hypothesis for this work that I'm talking about is the fact that AI models are essentially are only as good as the data that they are being trained on, and it is important for AI models to be trained on multiple data distributions in order for those models to be more robust and trustworthy. And we think that federated learning is an important aspect in providing kind of the infrastructure that is required to make AI models more robust and trustworthy. And this is this notion of the shift in data set affecting machine learning and AI is actually found a great deal in biomedicine. As you can see um, in one of the pictures on the right-hand side, there's a New England Journal of Medicine article that talks about how a popular AI model built into an electronic health record system in the US was confused because the model was supposed to predict the onset of sepsis in ICU patients, and it was not able to do it properly or more accurately when COVID-19 hit because the model hasn't been updated to understand how the COVID pandemic and how the symptoms that patients suffering from COVID are similar to sepsis, and it generated a lot of false positives for the physician. So the idea here, the reason why this is happening is because these models are being trained without proper data distributions, without enough distributions of data. And we think that federated learning is an important capability that will help address this challenge of data set shift in biomedicine. Just at a high level, federated learning is when you do machine learning without centrally locating all the training data. It actually reverses the paradigm of AI. Traditionally in AI, data is all collected in one location and models are trained on that data, and then the models are released to the outside world. In federated learning, the data stays where it is generated and the models go to the data, which makes it easy for the models to understand the distribution of the data at the individual sites and helps find a global model that is probably more robust to changes in the data distribution. There are two types of federated learning. One is a cross-device federated learning, and cross-device federated learning is very popular in phones. When people text each other, the federated learning model in the phones predicts the next word in the text message. And the cross side of federated learning is essentially where there are few large data depositories with the data that cannot be shared with each other, where we use federated learning to train a model in a cross-silo setting and figure out a global model. So in this talk, I'm going to focus mostly on the cross-silo federated learning, the framework that we built at Oregon with support from the Department of Energy Office of Science is essentially to enable researchers to build large-scale federated learning models without having to collect all the data in a central location. In addition to just federated learning, we also added privacy-preserving techniques to the federated learning. And some of the common techniques in privacy preservation aspects are homomorphic encryption, especially when data that you're training on is sensitive. And like Sean mentioned, if you're building a model on electronic health records data, hospital data, or personalized private data like genomics, those data sets cannot be shared with each other So some of the techniques you could use to do federated learning is by building on top of homomorphic encryption, secure multi-party computation. Both of these techniques are computationally expensive. What we built our framework on is something called differential privacy. Differential privacy is a very popular cryptographic technique that allows you to train models without having to share data and without the danger of the data being leaked in the model weights. So differential privacy provides some mathematical guarantees that allow you to secure data and not enable a malicious person to regenerate sensitive private data. So we essentially built a framework that allows researchers to implement to use privacy-preserving federated learning capabilities to build global models that are where for each iteration in a training iteration, the server that is running the global model shares with each client the same model, and each client trains it on its particular data, and then shares the trained model with the server. The server aggregates all the weights from the clients, sets up a new set of model weights, and then shares a new set of weights to each client, and the process continues until the model converges. So in this framework, every client is sending the server only the model gradients and not the data itself. However, one of the challenges for federated learning is that sometimes these frameworks are so complex to install and get them to work. It often requires a PhD in computer science to set up a multi-institutional federated learning framework and also to establish trust relationships between these organizations so they can share model weights without having to worry about private data. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we address it in our framework. So in addition to building a capability, we also innovated on algorithms that make it easy to implement differential privacy budget, and be able to converge these models at a faster rate. So this slide, we talk about some of the algorithmic advances we made in privacy preserving when we're using differential privacy. Is essentially we built these capabilities, mathematical models that help converge faster than what is the state of the art currently. So the privacy preserving framework that we created is a very modular framework where we can add custom algorithms for privacy preservation, for communications, for high performance computing, for training. So essentially, it is a very flexible framework that allows you to add multiple capabilities to it. And one of our ongoing work is to figure out how we can add homomorphic encryption, secure multi-party computing to this framework to do the analysis. So I talked about this already. So it's a major components of this software development toolkit are the training algorithms, privacy preserving schemes, different communication protocols, gRPC when you're doing wide area network, MPI when you're running it on a supercomputer to do training at a much faster rate. So as I mentioned before, it is really tedious to set up a federated learning capability that allows you to train a model across multiple organizations. When we were working with domain scientists, especially in biomedicine, where data privacy is important, we realized that it is important for domain experts to be able to set up a secure end-to-end privacy-preserving framework to do federated learning, be able to run experiments at a much faster rate. So we created a service, a web service, that allows researchers, domain researchers, to design, run federated learning experiments while making sure that they are building on top of trustworthy relationships between these organizations, and also use the state-of-the-art identity and access management protocols. So we created a web service that we currently run on Amazon Cloud, where a secure federation can be created between multiple organizations with a few mouse clicks. And we built on top of Globus service, which is a identity management and also data management service, so that secure federations can be created and experiments can be run that allows you to understand the impact of data distribution challenges and be able to build more robust AI models. So in addition to that, we integrated with GitHub so that researchers can do uniform pre-processing and also be able to develop advanced algorithms for performing cross-silo federated learning that allow for understanding of the computational resources at the edge. In addition to that, we also have APIs that allows you to integrate these capabilities into your applications, so that from your own applications you can run a federated learning algorithm, be able to leverage this secure framework. So I talked about this already. Essentially, we built on top of Globus to enable secure federations with strong identity and access management, and also added capabilities to enable leveraging high-performance computing or supercomputing resources without having to write code to do large-scale training. Especially one of the experiments that we're trying to do is to set up a worldwide testbed to fine-tune a large language model on biomedical data in a secure fashion. In order for us to do that, we need to be able to leverage high-performance computing resources like NCI and other supercomputing resources very easily. So we built this capability, so it makes it easy for researchers to build these models. One of the important reasons why we built this capability is because we have two different capabilities. One is the framework, the AFL framework, and the service, which is the FLX service. And those two capabilities have two distinct user communities, and we're happy to support both of those capabilities. The idea is that researchers can build using FLX, while computer science researchers can build out AFL in a more configurable manner. So I'm going to skip a couple more slides just to kind of keep us on time. These are some of the screenshots of the service where we created a secure federation across different countries in the world. At Norway and different universities in the US, we built a secure federation, and we would love to work with NCHC in making this capability and working with you in leveraging the AFL capability to build secure federations, so we can train a model across data sets from different Southeast Asian countries and other countries in a secure manner, so that we can build models that are more trustworthy and robust and can withstand data distribution changes. There's a lot of additional work that we are doing. One of the important things that I want to highlight in this slide is we're building a framework to do continuous training, continuous learning, so that when data streams are being made available, we want to use a federated learning framework to measure the quality of data and also measure any discrepancies, any anomalies that you will see when the data is being shared by essentially looking at the model performance changes to measure the data set shift. We are also working with our cybersecurity teams to make sure that the privacy budget that we had in differential privacy is can be changed based on the modality of data, and we can come up with a uniform framework for that maps the privacy budget to the data modality that is being used in the training process. So additionally, I wanted to talk about a couple more things. We are also working on building a secure enclave. We have a secure enclave to host private data for federal regulations. And the idea here is that this is how we are building our confidential computing capabilities so that we can train models while the data is securely located in a protected enclave, but be able to build a model that can benefit from training on this data. We also created capabilities that allow one to create secure private enclaves in supercomputers. This is a joint work with the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. The system is called HP Crypt, and the idea is that this kind of builds a secure private enclave on a supercomputer so that you can use that enclave to store sensitive data and compute and analyze on the data and be able to remove that data from the system after the analysis is done. So I have a few more slides, but I'm just gonna quickly go through how we applied these capabilities to biomedicine. One of the use cases that we use federated learning is detecting COVID-19 from chest x-rays. And as you can see on the picture below, the right-hand side picture is an X-ray image we try to regenerate from federated learning with a stronger privacy budget. And with weaker privacy, you can essentially regenerate training data. So we demonstrated that with our toolkit, you can create capabilities that allow you to do biomedical biomedical learning. We also did something similar in predicting age from ECG, and in this experiment, we essentially showed that using ECG and using federated learning to train a model on ECG data and using ECG data to predict a patient's age, that allowed us to predict a cardiovascular event or a heart attack in patients that are younger in age, but their hearts have aged at a much faster rate because of their lifestyle, like for smoking, for example. So, in conclusion, I wanted to end this talk by saying that the data shift challenges in AI are real, and it affects biomedicine a lot more than it does other domains, in my opinion. We want to create, if we want to create trustworthy and trustworthy and robust AI models, privacy-preserving federated learning is an important capability that allows one to do it. In this talk, we talked about the AFL framework that we're developing at Argonne, the AFLX framework service that we are developing that allows one to create large-scale federated learning models in biomedicine. So I put some links for folks to go and take a look at and download and play with our software and some papers that we published in this domain. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. I apologize for not being there in person. Hopefully, I can continue collaborating with your great organization and hopefully come visit you at a later time. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you. I'd like to open the floor for a couple of questions. Any questions?
Hello, Ravi. It was a nice talk. I want to know that when you use the differential privacy for computing, do you kind of do the evaluation about if the performance is the same, or I mean, especially the training time? So So sometimes my students complain about that the federated, they take some more time. So would you be able to give us some of the information about this part?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So definitely performance, there's definitely a hit on performance. The federated learning models are sometimes less robust or less performing than when the data is centrally collected. But in our experience, you make up the loss of performance by increase robustness of these models. Essentially, it's the game is building better AI models. And whenever a student of mine comes up with a model accuracy that is too good to be true, it is probably too good to be true. So my recommendation and my experience is that we need to make these models more robust, and federated learning with differential privacy is one solution. Obviously, if we were to do secure multi-party computation or homomorphic encryption, that would also work better, but it would be computationally more expensive. Hope that answered your question.
Okay. I think time's up. I'd like to move to next speakers. This thanks Ravi again. Thanks for the nice talk. Thank you, Ravi.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Olli-Pentti Saira, and he currently one of the technical lead in IQN, which is a quantum computer company in Finland. I would like to have a very brief introduction of his background. He got his master's degree in physics with a distinctions from Helsinki University of Technology in 2007, and got his PhD in engineering physics with distinctions from Aalto University in 2013. And he subsequently held a research position in TU Delft, Aalto University, Caltech, and Brookhaven National Laboratories before he joined IQN. And he combines his broad experiences in low temperature device physics and quantum information to develop practical and impactful machines. So please have a warm welcome to Saira.
Okay, better. Yes, thank you for the opportunity to, first of all, to come here and explore Taiwan and to tell you about our hardware and software developments and to share ideas. And I'm also looking for you to challenge our views and develop a fruitful discussion on how we can make use of quantum computing technology. And yes, I'm delivering this talk on behalf of my supervisor and our company's co-CEO, Quan Tan, who had to cancel this at the last minute. So I'm working more in the lower level hardware development. So I'm going to give a slightly different view on these topics as maybe Quan would have given, but let's see how we go. So I'm going to give a talk that first tells what IQM is as a company. Then I'll give a brief overview of our products and deliveries, and finally I will show how we view section I'm a bit worried about, so please be kind. It's not my background, but it's good if you you challenge our views. So, IQM was founded in 2018 as a spin-off of Aalto University and VTT, the National Technical Research Center of Finland. It combines the long history of low temperature physics research at Aalto University, and then the shared microfabrication facilities on campus with the idea of building on-premises quantum computers based on superconducting technology. And we have grown quite rapidly since then, as you can see by these numbers here. We're currently employing over 300 people and still growing. And the number of PhDs still emphasizes our heavy background in research, which we value greatly. So we've also outgrown the Aalto campus, and we hire experts from top universities in Europe and globally, and integrate all the best practices into our commercial products. But also we have grown in the sense that we are a serious hardware full stack supplier. So we do not only employ physics PhDs, but experts across various domains that I will tell a bit more about in the next slides. Okay, so the colors are a bit washed out. It should show like a more of a world map. So we have actually multiple locations around the world, but still we're headquartered in Finland, which is where our core R&D lies. We have also a big R&D presence in Munich, and then we have other offices that are currently sales offices. We are actively looking into expanding ours. So we have a worldwide focus with European roots. But we're actively looking into collaborations, especially in the first into local quantum ecosystems, but also just for end user applications. So we have a full algorithm team that can work with the domain experts to extract the best value of our hardware. Yes. So a little bit more about our capabilities. So we are truly a vertically integrated full stack company, and that starts with the silicon fab. So we use superconducting technology, but actually the substrate dielectric is the silicon, but we don't build semiconducting devices, but instead use superconducting metals and only the devices, but still we happen to use silicon as a convenient substrate, and we do also operate our own clean room. It is the single most significant investment we have made. It's currently 600 square meters of clean room area, fully operated and owned by IQM for fabrication of superconducting devices. So we have our standard products, but there is even an opportunity to do something called co-design. So it is possible to develop device topologies that would be better suited for some particular applications. Obviously understanding that the lead time of such a system will be longer. And here, of course, we employ professional clean room staff and make use of best practices that have been discovered in the semiconductor industry to improve our process monitoring and such for a professional synthesis and then endpoints for netlist-based circuit synthesis, 3D RPM modeling of device performance, and tape-out export then for manufacturing and tape-out. And then of course a quantum computer must interact with the classical world and classical data at some point. So we have our in-house software team that maintains the full software stack. At the lowest levels, you will see the layers that talk to hardware instruments and instrument firmware. We also have in-house electronics development. And then on top of that, we built the software stack that ends up at the algorithm user layer. So somebody who is more of a low-temperature physicist might use this experiment interface, but for application end users who deal with quantum gates and algorithms will use this so-called Cortex interface. But here I wanna highlight that us being a full stack company allows us to address specifications such as throughputs might be important in an HPC environment, so we can fully optimize the performance of the full stack by having access and control to all levels. Okay, so then about the hardware. So if you follow the field, there was a big announcement from IBM just today that mentions qubit counts up to 1,000. So that's a great achievement in demonstrating the level of packaging and managing cabling and so on. But also important to keep in mind that the qubit count by itself does not yet tell too much about the capabilities of the platform. So there's two other numbers that are important: the gate fidelities and then also the connectivity topology of these qubits. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this topic. So first of all, what is the superconducting platform for quantum computing, and what does it actually do? So this is so on the at the bottom you can actually see the actual silicon dies and how they are packaged. But this schematic representation is more interesting here. So each of these spheres it represents one qubit, and at the hardware level, this is basically a nonlinear microwave resonator with very high Q value, very low loss, that we furthermore can control at basically single photon occupation levels. So that's kind of the classical zeros and ones would be, in a sense, a single photon occupation of particular qubits. And then these lines in between the qubits now denote couplings, and these are tunable couplings. And effectively what the computer is it allows you to build a complex interference pattern that is made up from these single photon excitations of the qubits and then these couplings that you enable. And this, as you know, has a space complexity that grows exponentially in the number of qubits, and also there are some algorithms that for problem stated as classical computational problems will give you asymptotically better runtimes over any classical alternative. In some cases, which are maybe the most important ones, such as chemical simulation and integer factoring, for example, the runtime advantage can be exponential or at least. Okay, and then I said about the cubic number doesn't tell you everything, so then what you need to know in addition is the connectivity. So we're using this fully connected nearest neighbor square lattice. And in addition, we choose our system sizes and performance specs such that you can actually make use of all the qubits in a useful way in a system. So it would be tempting to push the qubit number count up without improving on these other metrics, and there might be some demonstration value to that, but for actually the actual end user applications, the number of useful qubits is might not increase by increasing the size of the hardware. So that is our approach. So I will try to speed up since I spent quite a lot of time already. Yeah. So our first product aimed at the educational market and more like quantum researchers, so-called IQM Spark, features 5 qubits. Again, it is a turnkey solution. We will build the whole system for you. We will advise on the facilities requirements. And it is most useful for researchers into quantum physics or people who are interested into some developments in various parts of the hardware stack, like control hardware. For actual end users, we would use larger QPUs, such as this one, 20 qubit system that we delivered this year to the Finnish State Research Facility. Depicted here, this is a 3-year project that culminates next year into a 50 qubit QPU delivery, and there's already some initial talks at the political level about the continuation. So here I want to say to this audience that this was delivery to independent end user, but it was still a more of a lab environment operated with physicists operating it even at the client side. Whereas the next case of us was more in the direction of like, let's say, industrial usage, which was to a German computing center, LRZ. So it will have similar processor specs as the VTT delivery, but this is now in an HPC environment, not a special purpose lab anymore. And to give an idea of what the actual algorithms and applications people are thinking about with these early state machines. So this is a little catalog, and these are projects as we have ongoing collaborations with partners and clients that are mentioned there for each application. So just in a few words, there is machine learning, quantum simulation. So especially for this strongly correlated electronic system, there is strong evidence of possible quantum advantage. There is optimization problems. Here, the best chances for quantum advantage seems to be highly constrained problems. And finally, there is partial differential equations. There is actually, in some cases, even exponential speed up. But to my understanding is that requires a so-called error-corrected architecture. So the ongoing research is how to achieve that with our non-error-corrected machines of today. But these are ongoing collaborations with our customers. Okay, so now comes the HPC part. So this is how we see HPC. So there's a little bit of history here about just development of computing architectures. So I guess this is nowadays common knowledge. So initially we had Moore's law and Denmark scaling that enabled one to increase transistor frequency and size and all metrics nicely on a predictable schedule, but that has reached a plateau nowadays, and the solution was to go to multi-core architectures that then might be limited by power and heat dissipation. This is at least the physicist's view. So quantum computing is an alternate paradigm for special purpose algorithms, and should be really seen as an accelerator, and obviously not replacing traditional computers, but working together in various configurations. And this is a plot from a reference that shows the total energy production of the world, and then the energy consumption of computing. Obviously this line must stay below this line, so there is something in the next decades that will prevent the current trend from continuing. So you basically need to, in order to maintain the increase in computing capability, you have to find ways to dramatically increase the energy efficiency. Okay, and then it comes a few slides at the end about how does this interaction of a quantum accelerator and a classical computing system look like. And this is a table of timescales, and these are actually, if you think about the system architecture, these are important. Obviously, maybe the ultimate end user only deals with algorithms, or maybe even doesn't even think about the algorithms, but like the problems themselves will not care about this, but this is for when you are thinking about building a system, these are relevant. So basically, the timescales for the shortest timescale, you can get one answer, which is in the form of a bit string from a superconducting QPU is around here. So these are hundreds of nanoseconds they make microsecond to tens of microseconds. So superconducting quantum computer platform is the fastest quantum computing platform per gate speed. So this is basically one execution of a gate of a circuit composing of thousands to tens of thousands of gates or groups of gates sequentially. But normally in some scenarios you might, and this produces a classical result. In some scenarios you might want to actually act on this classical measurement result immediately, and that then mandates quite rapid low latency processing and high bandwidth for the classical data transfer. In most cases, one will actually average the results of a single circuit execution, let's say 10,000 times at least, and then we are looking at seconds for an average result, and then that opens up more possibilities or reduces technical challenges of how this computer can be used. So basically, if you are in this domain, you can easily think about communicating with the quantum accelerator over faster, and then the hardware implementations might look something like this. So you might, easiest HPC integration would be remote access to quantum platform over internet in some way. Probably easiest, but the top minus here is data security. So the data will go to a particularly different location. To fix that, you will need an on-premises solution, which obviously reduces latencies as well. Yeah, so we currently are offering a solution that is compatible with an HPC environment, so it packs the equipment or components you will find in lab in a nice enclosure. So this brings me to the end of this presentation. So we are really looking for collaboration to actually find end users that identify the most promising approaches, and so that we can direct our developments in the correct direction. So yeah, I'm gonna stop here. 1 minute overtime, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally. Any question? Yes.
I can hear you.
I'm new to quantum computing. I'm a dummy person on quantum computing. I mean, a dumb on quantum computing. So for a dummy like me, okay, to move from HP, I'm familiar with HPC. I understand Greek, but when it comes to quantum computing, I got confused. Okay, what is the easiest way for you to explain to me how I can shift my thinking in terms of programming-wise? To program on parallel is different, to program on grid is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, a great question. And this is, of course, the one we always battle with. What is the, how do we enable users who don't have a PhD in physics to use this? So basically, I would say you would pick one of those algorithm end user applications that I showed there, and then start experimenting with those. So build problems, inputs that are compatible with those machines, and then look at the outputs, and then you will see if there's any, are those kind of problems of interest to you. And then if yes, then there might be something. If not, then, as I said, it's a special purpose platform, so in a sense, yes, yeah, yes.
Okay, maybe last question.
Hello. I think it's related to Nurul's question. Does IQM also provide co-development service with its partners, for example, for those working on the natural sciences, on how to map their domain problem into encodings that are fit to be solved in IQM's quantum computers?
So yes, so we do have a co-design approach, by which we actually mean really the most ambitious type, meaning that the die topology and the connectivity itself is tailored to the problem. And then the other but easier thing is just to get algorithmic experts to address your polyglot problem and see if it can be mapped to the existing hardware platforms. That's obviously going to be a lot faster and cheaper. But yeah, both are possible.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sam. And I would like to invite you to have a round of applause to thank all the speakers for this session.